Hi, friends, it's John Moore here, and I am a spiritual teacher. I live in Maine in the US. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the difference between an amulet and a talisman. Many people use these terms interchangeably, and if you do, I'm not going to correct you. Totally fine, totally fine. Um, because there isn't always completely accepted tradition or dogma or what have you around the use of these objects, they can be used interchangeably, but I want to draw a little bit of a distinction in how many people think about the difference between amulets and talismans. So, to get started, I'll show you the objects as only. This one is a talisman, and this is one of the Solomonic seals of the moon. And this is an amulet. And this happens to have, sorry, I'm tangled up here. This happens to have, that is the head of Medusa on it. Yes, the Gorgon from Greek mythology. If you saw Clash of the Titans, you saw Medusa. And you're probably, Medusa's fairly well known. The woman with snake's fur hair, can turn a man to stone with her gaze, that sort of thing. So, both amulets and talismans are magical or ritual objects. This is different than a layman, Lamen. I'll talk a little bit about that, but that's a little bit less of a popular term, I guess. Both are magical objects that are worn, usually worn on the body or carried. While these are what you might traditionally think of, these are metal objects that were formed to have specific magical images on them. Not all amulets and talismans appear that way. Some of them, and they can be anything. They can be a stone. They can be metal object. They can be paper that you've written certain things on. So there's lots of different ways that these magical objects are empowered. And I think my cat may make an appearance here in a second. If she does, we'll say hi. She's walking around on my desk as I speak. So, amulets. One way that I think of amulets, talismans, I use the first, here's a little mnemonic device. I use the first letter of each word. A for amulet, T for talisman, A for away, and T for toward. So a talisman is for things that you want to draw towards you. So this happens to be a good talisman for what we call road opening, which is overcoming obstacles, right? Opening roads to success or magic or what have you. Amulets, A or away, these are generally considered protective devices. These are things that keep bad energy away, bad juju. A really popular one, I do have one on my desk. Let me grab this. And these are sometimes worn and sometimes hung up in the house. This is a hamsa, which is a defense against the evil eye. Sure, you've seen this. These are popular. Many cultures, very often associated with color blue. You'll see blue stones, or you'll see them made out of blue, or painted blue, or what have you. So, talismans bring things that you want towards you. They bring you power, they bring energy towards you. Well, amulets are generally speaking protective. And again, people use these terms interchangeably. I have an amulet for luck. Maybe it wards off bad luck, but if it brings good luck to you, like a four-leaf clover could be a type of talisman. Now, the talismanic objects and amulets exist across cultures throughout time. You could think of a crucifix, for example. I know, and I don't mean that to be offensive to anyone, and don't take offense to that. It's just strictly defined. This is an object that is meant to protect you. In that case, it's acting as an amulet from bad things happening by bringing in the power of the Holy Spirit, or however it's supposed to work, right? So people wear crosses, people wear, and they consider these to be powerful objects. Some of them will have images of gods, deities, other types of spiritual beings, gorgons. This is, Medusa, was it Gorgon? Um, she had two sisters, by the way, and I can't remember their names at this point. Um, but they all had snakes for hair, and you will often see the head of Medusa used in above doorways in ancient Greek houses and stuff like that, right? Because it's protective, it's meant to ward away, and it's similar to the idea of a jack o' lantern. In the way that they were traditionally used, you carve grotesque faces in a squash, put a candle inside it, and it's meant to scare off or ward evil spirits. Frequently, that's what amulets are used for. Lots and lots of uses for talismans. You can have talismans for all kinds of purposes. Um, Hoodoo, which is basically African American, a form, one of many forms of African American folk magic, popular throughout the United States, particularly in the southern part of the United States. They have talismans for all kinds of things. If you've heard the word mojo or mojo bag, it comes from hoodoo. It's a little bag that might be filled with herbs and other objects that becomes a talisman of sorts. So let's talk about cleansing and empowerment. Let's say you want to get a talisman or you want to get an amulet. You go online, you're like, oh man, that head of Medusa is really cool, really fearsome. I could wear that around and feel a level of protection around that. Um, and while there is something to be said, there's the idea of sympathetic magic. Sympathetic magic means that something that looks like something else is connected to it. So if I have a little figurine of a bear, right? Like this somehow connects me with bear energy. Okay, so there is sympathetic magic, but there's also something called magic of contagion, which means that things that were in contact with other things pick up those vibrations. So if I order this amulet online, or this talisman over here, or any other sort of sacred object I'm going to use, I don't know who's handled that. I don't know if it's been used in anybody else's rituals, or if just somebody like really angry was working on hammering this thing out or whatever, right? So very important with any sort of ritual objects. This can be good with if you buy antiques. I actually have a wand that is made out of 5,000-year-old bog oak, and that's probably okay. Probably hadn't been handled by, but I actually don't know who handled it before it got shipped to me from the UK. So this it's important when you get an object like this, unless it's been empowered for you. So if you were, you could buy a talisman, for example, from somebody who is a magician of some sort, or practices witchcraft or something, who is going to do empowerment ritual on that for you, and you know that that's been done, then don't do a cleansing when you get that. Don't wipe away, you know. So I'm going to show you how old I am and talk about an old technology, right? So we had videotapes and audio tapes back when I was a day. If you wanted a movie, if you wanted to watch a movie, you frequently had to put a tape, which was, actual piece of tape that had magnetic coating on it, right? And you would record over, if you had a blank tape, you would record over it so many times, and never got quite completely erased unless you had some really industrial equipment to erase it. So the picture would get like scratchy and kind of messed up because it still held the magnetic sum of the magnetic imprints of what had been recorded on it before, right? And the tapes degraded over time and all of these things. So um, you could use, I remember in college, I worked at the college radio station. We had a bulk tape eraser. It was this giant, you could take a stack of tapes, put a giant electromagnetic magnet on it and turn it on, and it would pulse If you put it on a metal filing cabinet, it would shake the whole filing cabinet. It was cool, right? So similarly, objects pick up the vibrations of the environment that they're in, of the people who handled them. And so you want to, when you get home, you want to do a cleansing. There are many, many ways to do this. Too many to go into in this video. Maybe I'll do a whole other video on cleansing. But a couple of ways that work really, really well is you can fumigate the objects using sacred scents. Now, a lot of people these days are smudging with white sage, which is okay. But if there's heavy energy or entities attached to anything or whatever, sage will do nothing. um, might, the entities attached to the object might go, hey, that smells really good. I think I'll hang out even longer. Frankincense is really good if you can, get yourself a coal incense burner, and frankincense tears that you can order. The frankincense tears are just drops of resin, frankincense resin. Really, really good. For herbs that I use for clearing, I prefer rosemary and cedar to sage. Not to mention the fact that white sage is sometimes unethically harvested from traditional um, indigenous harvesting sites, and so I try not to purchase white sage. Um, I don't try. I don't purchase white sage. But dried rosemary works extremely well, and is traditionally used for cleansing. But frankincense is really good. There's a substance called Florida water. If you're not familiar, you can buy it, big bottles of it for about $10, $9 or $10. Can be ordered online in plastic or glass bottles, and it's sold as a cologne, and it's used for cleansing. Saltwater cleansing, you can have very, very salty water. You want to make sure that that's not going to affect the material of the object. Okay, it's not going to cause it to rust. If it's an iron object or something like that. But you can do soak something in salt water, set it out in the sun for cleansing. Everything you do, cleansing, empowering, whatever, you do it with intention. So if you just like splash some salt water on something, it's not going to do much. Your intention is what drives the action. So you get salt water, you soak this in here. The salt crystals absorb the old energy, right? Salt's really, really good at absorbing things. And so when you're done, rinse off the object and pour the salt water out. It's fine to dump it into the ground. If it's very salty, don't dump it on plants that could be harmed. But you can dump it in the ground or dump it down the sink or dump it down the toilet. You don't want to reintroduce that energy back into your environment. So cleansing, you can do it through smoke, you can do it through salt water, you can do it through light, you can do cleansing rituals around these objects, perfectly good. So there's all kinds of ways that you can do this. This basically removes any of the unwanted energy from the object. Now, you can then go on to empower or charge the object with your intent. I can't really explain how to do that because it depends entirely on the object. So this particular amulet to Medusa was empowered in a ritual invoking Hecate, who is the goddess of witches in Greek mythology. This particular road opening talisman was empowered using a ritual that was appropriate for that particular amulet. So, while you can empower kind of random objects using some kind of ritual, using your own energy, using your intent, always have intent. There, I can't define how that, I can't define sort of one generic empowerment ritual because it really depends on the object. But there are a ton of rituals online. You can find them. If you're new to any sort of ritual work, don't go invoking demons or high level deities until you get some experience under your belt. You could work with spirits of like angels or minor deities or that sort of thing. But ultimately, I find the results will not be what you want, and unless you have a relationship with this spirit. Let's talk about the word layman a little bit. Lamen. A layman is another type of sacred object that is often worn, and it is worn during specific ceremonies, right? During specific rituals. So a layman, sometimes a big thing that somebody wears on their chest to, that goes along with the ritual that they're doing. So if I'm doing a ritual to invoke Jupiter or evoke Jupiter, or whether I'm invoking or evoking, I might wear a layman with the seal of the archangel Sachiel that is associated with the planet Jupiter, right? Or you might be part of a specific magical order and you wear a layman, a sacred object, usually worn around the neck or at the breast, that is appropriate to the role that you're playing in the ritual. So there may be a different layman for different ritual officers, or your denotes your rank in the organization, right? So I'm level 3, blah blah blah, or third degree master mason, or third degree master masons don't wear laymans unless they are actually officers in the ritual, and those they tend to refer to as jewels, but they are essentially laymans. They'll wear a specific symbol on their chest to denote who they are in the ritual. Okay, this does act as a talisman, because it is bringing in energy specific to your role in that. But so because laymans are very often esoteric symbols, meaning they are available to inner initiates only, it's not as common a term as amulet or talisman that just everybody has in all kinds of cultures. So you can look at people wearing their astrological signs on their necklace or a bracelet or something like that, or again, wearing a cross if they're Christian, or wearing a Star of David if they're Jewish, or the name escapes me. The letter H is all in Hebrew. The He sign, or the High sign, whatever it's called, is very, very common as well amongst people who are Jewish. These are talismanic sacred objects, whether they've been empowered, whether they've been cleansed, whether they've been blessed. Regardless, the idea is that I feel closer to my religion, I feel closer to my spirituality, I feel closer when I wear this thing. And so it does have an effect on the person. Talismans in particular can have a wide variety of effects. They can be created for specific reasons. So, for example, in hoodoo, there are lots of talismanic objects for luck, like luck in gambling, luck in court cases, luck in love, all kinds of stuff like that. There are also protective amulets. There are some that are protective specifically for women. There are mojo bags that are worn, that are pinned like inside a woman's shirt or something like that, that protect women who are traveling alone, and that sort of thing. So, and there are tons and tons of these different objects, and they're empowered with different oils and different rituals, and perhaps even prayers. There's a lot of Bible verses used in hoodoo, particularly the Psalms. And so anyway, that's a little bit about amulets and talismans. What's the difference? Hope that's been helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I've got lots more videos coming down the road. We'll talk to you very soon.